15 minutes. That is the gap between calm summer afternoon and a tornado warning on your phone telling you to get to the basement now. 30 seconds. That is the time it can take a derecho to climb from a gust of wind that rattles your window to an 85-mile-per-hour roar that takes the roof off the house. 250 miles. That is the minimum length of damage a single severe thunderstorm complex can produce in one night, racing across multiple states, knocking out power to hundreds of thousands of people while they sleep. And here is the thing I need you to understand, because almost nobody is connecting the dots. The pattern that is setting up across the central and eastern United States right now is exactly the pattern that produces those kinds of storms. The fast, violent, long-tracking, life-threatening kind. The kind that fires at the worst possible time, in the worst possible location, and reaches dangerous intensity faster than most people can react to it. A massive ridge of high pressure parked over the east, a loaded, moisture-rich atmosphere underneath it, a jet stream cutting along its northern rim, providing the wind shear that organizes thunderstorms into long-lasting destructive complexes, and shortwave disturbances rolling through that rim on a near-daily basis, each one capable of triggering the next major event. The Storm Prediction Center is already warning of repeated days of convective activity through the end of the week, with the potential for organized clusters, bowing segments, and supercells producing damaging winds, large hail, and tornadoes. This is not a regular Wednesday afternoon thunderstorm setup. This is the pattern that has historically produced the events that show up in damage reports months later as the storms that changed how a community thinks about severe weather. So today I want to walk you through exactly why these storms are about to get dangerous fast, what makes the fast part the real killer who is sitting in the bullseye, and what you need to do before the next round fires. Let's get into it. I know how this sounds. Every summer is severe weather season. Every week the radar lights up. Every cycle the cable news graphic shows a tornado watch box stretching across 3 states. And after a while, the word dangerous stops meaning anything because it gets attached to everything. So let me be precise about why this setup is different. Because the difference is not the storms themselves. It is the speed at which they go from manageable to catastrophic. A typical summer afternoon thunderstorm builds gradually, peaks, and weakens. You see it coming on radar. You have time. But the storms that fire under the kind of pattern that is in place right now do not behave that way. They organize, they accelerate, they consolidate into structures that are physically designed to produce the maximum amount of damage in the minimum amount of time. And the only protection against that kind of storm is recognizing the pattern before it fires, not after. Let me walk you through the 4 mechanisms that turn an ordinary severe thunderstorm setup into a fast-developing, life-threatening one, because once you see them, you will understand why forecasters use the language they use, and why the difference between a routine afternoon and a derecho event can come down to a single shortwave nobody on social media talked about. The first mechanism is the derecho. And this is the one almost nobody outside of professional meteorology understands. A derecho is a specific, technically defined type of thunderstorm complex. It produces wind gusts of at least 58 miles per hour along most of its length, with multiple well-separated gusts of 75 miles per hour or higher over a path of at least 250 miles. In other words, it is not one storm. It is a coordinated, self-organizing line of storms that propagates forward across hundreds of miles in a single event, often racing at 60 or 70 miles per hour, faster than most weather systems move. Communities in its path experience what feels like a hurricane, except the warning time can be less than 30 minutes. The event itself can last under an hour, and the damage left behind looks more like a tornado track than a thunderstorm event. The Northern Plains and Midwest just experienced a confirmed derecho, with 80 to 85 mile per hour winds tearing across northern Illinois and northwest Indiana, and forecasters have explicitly warned that the current pattern is favorable for more of them. The AccuWeather local storm max for wind gusts in this week's setup is 140 miles per hour, which, if it verifies, would be among the highest thunderstorm wind gusts ever recorded in the United States. The second mechanism is the bowing segment and the long-tracking supercell, the two storm structures that produce the most violent severe weather events of any given summer. A bowing segment is the radar signature of a line of thunderstorms that is organized into a forward-leaning curve, with the bow itself representing the location of the strongest damaging winds. When you see a bow echo on radar, you are looking at a storm that is actively pumping out damaging winds along its leading edge, and the bow can travel for hours, producing wind damage along an entire state's worth of geography. The long-tracking supercell, the storm structure that produces nearly all of the strongest tornadoes, has the additional ability to spawn multiple tornadoes during its life cycle, with each successive one potentially stronger than the last. A confirmed supercell during a recent severe weather outbreak in the northern plains produced a wind gust to 131 miles per hour, which would be the second highest thunderstorm wind gust ever recorded in this country if verified. And both of these structures, the bow and the supercell, are favored by the exact kind of atmospheric setup that is currently in place across the central and eastern United States. The third mechanism is what forecasters call the particularly dangerous situation tornado warning. And this is one of the most important phrases in severe weather literacy that almost nobody outside of professional meteorology has heard of. A regular tornado warning means a tornado is occurring or imminent. A PDS tornado warning, which the National Weather Service issues only in rare situations, means a large, violent, life-threatening tornado is on the ground, and the official language used in the warning will include phrases like catastrophic damage and complete destruction is possible. When the NWS issues a PDS warning, what they are telling you is, this is the worst-case scenario, and you need to act now. During the most recent severe weather outbreak across the Midwest, a PDS warning was issued for a large and extremely dangerous tornado moving across northwestern Indiana, with the storm producing damage at the EF3 level along its track. The same atmospheric setup that produced that PDS warning is, again, what is setting up across the central United States this week. The fourth mechanism is the one that quietly kills more people than the other three combined, and it is the one almost no severe weather coverage spends enough time on. The nocturnal storm, severe weather that fires after dark in the overnight hours while millions of people are asleep. Storms that develop along a low-level jet that strengthens after sunset, often peaking in intensity between 10 in the evening and 2 in the morning. These storms produce some of the most violent, fast-moving, severe weather events of any summer, and they hit people who are asleep, whose phones may be on Do Not Disturb, whose homes have no one watching the radar, and whose only warning is whatever the wireless emergency alert system can manage to push through in the few minutes between a warning being issued and the storm arriving. The current setup features a strengthening low-level jet in exactly the configuration that drives nocturnal severe weather. This is not a daytime threat. This is an around-the-clock threat, and the dangerous fast part of the title gets considerably more dangerous after dark. Now put those four together, derecos firing along the ridge's rim with hurricane-level winds across hundreds of miles, bowing segments and supercells organizing under favorable shear into long-lasting damaging structures, PDS warnings for the rare but inevitable monster tornadoes that find the right window, and nocturnal storms developing on the low-level jet, hitting people in the worst possible way at the worst possible time. That is the recipe that is in place right now, and that is exactly what the Storm Prediction Center is warning about for the days ahead. Let me get specific about who is in the path of this setup, because severe weather is intensely geographic, and you need to know whether this is your problem or your neighbor's. The northern plains, the upper Midwest, and into southern Canada. the Dakotas, Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, northern Illinois, northern Indiana, Michigan, and into Ontario and the Canadian prairies. This is the corridor sitting directly along the northern rim of the ridge, in the path of every shortwave disturbance that comes east. The northern plains and upper Midwest are the corridor most favored for derecho development under this kind of pattern, and they have already produced multiple confirmed severe events this season. This is the highest probability zone for the most violent severe weather over the coming days. The Middle Mississippi Valley and Ohio Valley, Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, southern Illinois, southern Indiana, and southern Ohio. This corridor sits along the southern flank of the active storm corridor, and it is the region most likely to receive secondary rounds of severe weather and training thunderstorms as systems track east. It is also the corridor that has taken the worst of the flash flooding from the ring of fire pattern, which means the severe storms here are landing on saturated ground and producing compounding impacts. The Northeast and the I-95 corridor, New York, northern Pennsylvania, Vermont, New Hampshire, and into northern New England. As shortwaves track east across the northern rim, severe weather threat areas extend into the Northeast on the back end of major events. The Northeast is statistically less prepared for severe weather than the plains, with less institutional experience handling derechos and PDS-level events, and the dense urban infrastructure and tree canopy make damage potential disproportionately high relative to the actual wind speeds involved. The Mid-Atlantic and the Southeast, Virginia, North Carolina, and into the Carolinas and Georgia, especially along the dome's western and southwestern edges. As storms ride the rim southward and southeastward, the Mid-Atlantic and Southeast face afternoon and evening rounds of pulse and clustered severe thunderstorms, with damaging winds, hail, and isolated tornadoes the primary threats, and the broader hail corridor, from Texas through Alabama, and a second hotspot covering Iowa, northern Missouri, eastern Nebraska, and northeastern Kansas. Hail is the silent damage producer of severe weather season. It does not get the headlines that tornadoes do, but it can cause billion-dollar damage events when it hits a densely populated metropolitan area, and the current setup is favorable for the kind of large, destructive hail events that strip the paint off cars and break out windshields in seconds. Now I want to take a moment on the single most important piece of severe weather literacy that almost nobody locks in until after they have lived through a close call, because in a setup that produces fast-developing dangerous storms, this is the knowledge that saves lives. You have to understand your severe weather alerts, and the words mean very different things. A severe thunderstorm watch means conditions are favorable for severe storms to develop in the watch area in the next several hours. It is the heads up. A severe thunderstorm warning means a severe storm is actively occurring in a specific area right now. A tornado watch and a tornado warning follow the same pattern, with watch meaning be ready and warning meaning take cover. And the most serious of all, the particularly dangerous situation warning, is reserved for the rare cases where a large, violent, life-threatening tornado is confirmed on the ground. When you see those 4 letters, PDS, in a warning, you do not assess. You do not finish what you are doing. You move to your safest interior space immediately. Knowing the difference between these levels before a watch is even issued is the most genuinely life-saving piece of weather literacy you can carry. So here is your practical action list, because in a setup that produces fast-developing severe weather, the preparation you do today is what determines what kind of night you have when the warning drops. Make sure your wireless emergency alerts are enabled on your phone and that the volume is loud enough to wake you. This is the single most important action item in this entire video. The most dangerous severe weather events of any summer happen at night when people are asleep, and the wireless emergency alert is, for many people, the only warning they will ever receive in time to act. Set the volume. Set it now. Test it. And do not put your phone on. Do not disturb during any active severe weather watch. Get a NOAA weather radio if you do not have one. A weather radio is an independent, battery-powered, always-on receiver that picks up severe weather warnings directly from the National Weather Service. If the power goes out, if your cell signal drops, if your phone is dead, the weather radio still works. For people who live in severe weather corridors, this is one of the highest return on investment safety purchases you can make. Know where you shelter from a tornado. Right now, on a calm afternoon, identify the room you would shelter in if a warning dropped right now. The lowest floor, the most interior room away from windows, a basement if you have one, a small interior bathroom or closet if you do not. Manufactured homes and mobile homes are not safe in a tornado, ever, and if you live in one, you need to know exactly where you would go and how long it would take you to get there. Watch the Storm Prediction Center Day 1 and Day 2 outlooks every morning. This is the same forecast product that emergency managers and broadcast meteorologists use to plan their day. When the SPC issues a slight, enhanced, moderate, or high risk for severe storms in your area, that is your signal to be on heightened alert. Higher categories mean significantly higher likelihood of severe weather, including the most dangerous events. If you encounter a severe thunderstorm while driving, do not try to outrun it. Pull off to the side of the road away from trees, get into a sturdy building if one is nearby, or stay in your vehicle with your seatbelt on if you cannot reach shelter. And during a tornado warning, never shelter under a highway overpass. That is one of the most dangerous places you can be in a tornado because the wind funnels through the gap and accelerates, increasing your exposure rather than reducing it. And check on the vulnerable people in your life. The elderly, the isolated, anyone living in a mobile home, anyone who might not hear an overnight alert. A wellness check during an active severe weather pattern is one of the most life-saving things you can do, and it costs you nothing. Here is the honest summary of where we stand. A massive ridge of high pressure is parked over the eastern half of the country. The jet stream is cutting along its northern rim, and shortwave disturbances are rolling through that rim on a near-daily basis. The atmosphere underneath is loaded with moisture and instability. The Storm Prediction Center is warning of repeated days of organized severe weather with derecho potential, bowing segments, supercells, and the possibility of nocturnal events that develop on the strengthening low-level jet. The mechanisms that turn ordinary severe storms into fast-developing life-threatening events are all in place. This is not winding down. It is the active phase. And the storms that fire under this pattern have the structural ability to go from clear sky to a tornado warning in 15 minutes, and from a gust of wind to 85 miles per hour in under a minute. So enable your wireless emergency alerts and set the volume. Get a NOAA weather radio. Know where you shelter. Watch the SPC outlook every morning. Take the PDS language seriously when you see it. Never shelter under a highway overpass. And check on the people who cannot fight this alone. The pattern is locked in. The storms are coming. And the dangerous part is going to arrive faster than most people are mentally prepared for. I will be tracking every shortwave and every outlook closely, and I will bring you the next update the moment a major event sharpens. Until then, stay safe, stay prepared, and never, ever let your guard down.